We all love SpongeBob, but sometimes there are a couple of episodes that are just plain strange. In this video, I'll be sharing the top 10 weirdest episodes from SpongeBob. Most of these episodes are pretty iconic, they just have a touch of weirdness to them. But hey, that's what makes them awesome. So, let's dive into the video. At number 10, I Had an Accident, Season 3, Episode 56. Lots of people get scared to do something again after they got hurt doing it before. Usually, it's like a broken ankle or arm or wrist. But for SpongeBob in I Had an Accident, it was his butt. He was sandboarding and he crashed and broke his butt. After the doctor fixed him up, he told SpongeBob to be careful or he might have a machine for a butt. This made SpongeBob really anxious, and he decided he would never go outside again. What makes it weird is that SpongeBob gets super scared about his broken butt and becomes agoraphobic. He's tempted to risk himself by doing things like getting spanked 7 miles away and by his friends Sandy and Patrick, who try to get him to go outside. And if that's not weird enough, he starts talking to himself and imagining that a napkin, a penny, and a potato chip are his friends. The creators of the show really went crazy with it by having 2 real people in gorilla and horse costumes. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but we don't watch SpongeBob SquarePants for logic anyway. At number 9, Scaredy Pants from Season 1, Episode 13. SpongeBob's friends have a lot of words to describe him, but brave is definitely not one of them. In this Halloween episode, SpongeBob becomes the target of pranks because everyone knows he's easily scared. He decides to try and scare others by dressing up as a ghost, but he feels like he can't because he's square. So he shaves his head, puts a white blanket over himself, and goes into town. What makes this episode weird is that for most of it, it's just fun and crazy like we expect from SpongeBob SquarePants. SpongeBob and Patrick think their plan is working, even though most people find them annoying. They do manage to scare some people at the Krusty Krab's party, but then something strange happens. At the end, even SpongeBob gets scared when he sees what's under his costume. It turns out he didn't just shave off his sponge exterior, but he went all the way down to exposing his brain. This episode is both weird and a little dark. At number 8, The Algae's Always Greener from Season 3, Episode 1. In this episode, Plankton, who is always causing trouble, is tired of his boring life eating fake meatloaf and running a failed restaurant. He gets the opportunity to switch places with Mr. Krabs, who seems to have everything. However, Plankton soon realizes that Mr. Krabs' success comes with a lot of pressure, and maybe his own life wasn't so bad after all. What makes this episode weird is when the characters break their usual roles. We already had to accept that Mr. Krabs has a whale daughter, but it gets even stranger when she calls Plankton her dad. We all expected Mr. Krabs to be the villain, but seeing him completely naked instead of wearing his usual uniform was a shock for many of us as kids. And let's not even get into the fact that he was defeated by a clothes blasting gun that made him wear a bra. This episode was meant to make us feel off balance, and it definitely succeeded. At number 7, we have the episode called Frankendoodle from Season 2. This episode takes a hilarious twist on the idea of bringing drawings to life. When a frustrated artist accidentally drops his pencil into the ocean, SpongeBob and Patrick find it and start doodling with it. To their surprise, everything they draw comes to life, including a mischievous version of SpongeBob called Doodlebob. This doodle wreaks havoc on everyone, including its own creator. What makes this episode really weird is the unpredictable nature of Doodlebob. He has strange abilities, like sharpening the pencil with his mouth, that are never explained. And his murderous intentions are a mystery to fans. In the end, SpongeBob manages to trap Doodlebob in a storybook where he suddenly becomes good and has a big smile on his face. Whenever real people are involved in a SpongeBob SquarePants episode, things get a little weird, but this over-the-top artist with his constantly changing emotions takes the cake. At number 6, Rock Bottom, Season 1, Episode 17. Rock Bottom is another episode of SpongeBob SquarePants that starts off simple but gets super weird as you keep watching. SpongeBob and Patrick leave a theme park but accidentally hop on the wrong bus and end up in a crazy place called Rock Bottom, deep in the sea. SpongeBob gets left behind when Patrick jumps on a bus without him, but he's not alone. There are these strange sea creatures who talk in weird languages that keep him company. What makes it so weird is that we've all seen pictures of bizarre sea creatures that live at the bottom of the ocean, and this episode introduces us to them. The fact that they communicate by spitting just adds to the creepiness. Nothing makes sense to SpongeBob or to us viewers. Rock Bottom doesn't feel like a different city or country. It feels like a whole other planet with alien creatures. And the craziest part is that you can actually get there by taking a regular bus. It's mind-boggling. At number 5, the Two Faces of Squidward from Season 5. In this episode, Squidward is just trying to survive his shift at the Krusty Krab, but SpongeBob and Patrick's obnoxious singing is making it impossible. When Squidward confronts them, they slam the door in his face, but instead of getting hurt, he miraculously ends up with a super attractive face. This new look causes chaos wherever he goes, with people fainting and getting into accidents. At first, Squidward enjoys the attention, but soon realizes that being handsome isn't all it's cracked up to be. What makes it weird is that everyone in the show thinks Squidward's new face is amazing, but for us viewers, it's just plain creepy. We're used to seeing Squidward with his old face, and this new version doesn't fit his character or the animation style. He becomes a sort of pseudo-celebrity because of his good looks, and when he tries to reverse the curse, he ends up becoming even more handsome, transforming his whole body. There's something unsettling about this handsome Squidward. At number 4, Squidward in Clarinetland, Season 7, Episode 133. While other SpongeBob characters like to go jelly fishing or do karate, Squidward has always been into playing the clarinet. He's got a recital coming up, and he keeps his clarinet locked up at work to keep it safe. But then SpongeBob goes and moves it, and Squidward is freaking out trying to find it. He discovers a little door in the locker room that leads him to a forest full of clarinets instead of trees. And then this talking eaglehead shows up and swallows him because he didn't show enough respect for clarinets. What makes it weird is the talking eaglehead, or the keeper of the horned forest as they call it, is what makes this episode of SpongeBob SquarePants so strange. But it's also like Squidward's worst nightmare come to life. He keeps thinking he sees SpongeBob with his clarinet, but then SpongeBob just disappears. And then he's stuck in this room full of mirrors where his reflection starts doing its own thing and shoves a clarinet into his mouth. With some different music, this could easily be a horror movie. At number 3, Doing Time, Season 3, Episode 45. Mrs. Puff has a pretty interesting backstory in the SpongeBob SquarePants fandom, with lots of hints about her shady past. In Doing Time, she's tagging along with SpongeBob on yet another driving test, which, as you can imagine, doesn't go well. But what she didn't see coming was getting arrested and sent to prison after their crash. Surprisingly, she actually kind of enjoys getting away from her crazy student and accepts her fate. But SpongeBob is determined to break her out of jail, with a little help from Patrick, of course. What makes this episode so weird is that SpongeBob and Patrick come up with some seriously bizarre ways to infiltrate the prison, like hiding in a vat of chili. And every time Mrs. Puff tries to call the guards, they mysteriously vanish, making everyone think she's losing her mind. But the real weirdness happens at the end when it's revealed that it was all just a dream. Or maybe a vision. It's still kind of unclear. There's a version where SpongeBob gets arrested and another where Mrs. Puff has already served her time. It's a trippy episode that'll leave you with more questions than answers. At number 2, To Love a Patty from Season 5, Episode 87. In this episode, SpongeBob develops a crush on a Krabby Patty. It all starts when he notices a particularly attractive patty that he names Patty. He becomes so obsessed with it that he ignores his friends, goes on dates with Patty, and even fights off clams to protect his love. Eventually, the patty starts to go bad, but SpongeBob's love remains unchanged. What makes it weird is that SpongeBob doesn't snap out of his infatuation even when the patty becomes rotten and smelly. On one hand, it's sweet that SpongeBob values love beyond physical appearance. But on the other hand, it's strange that he doesn't seek a connection with an actual living being. Like many of the show's bizarre episodes, there's no explanation for why SpongeBob falls for a sandwich he interacts with every day. Maybe it's best not to overthink it. At number 1, I Was a Teenage Gary, Season 1, Episode 13. Squidward isn't really into pets, but if it means getting a few days without annoying neighbors, he's all for watching SpongeBob's snail Gary. However, Squidward totally forgets about Gary and only remembers when he hears SpongeBob coming back. He tries to feed Gary, who looks really weak, but ends up eating all the food himself. To save Gary, they have to inject him with snail plasma, but Squidward accidentally stabs SpongeBob instead. I Was a Teenage Gary is another one of those freaky SpongeBob SquarePants episodes. SpongeBob turning into a snail is just plain creepy. His eyes pop out, he loses his limbs, and his body twists in all sorts of weird ways. In his new snail form, SpongeBob shows up at Squidward's door in the middle of the night, meowing nonstop. Squidward tries to keep him out, but SpongeBob keeps popping up and following him around the house. Gary is adorable and lovable, but Squidward and SpongeBob as snails are straight out of a nightmare. So, that's the video. Thanks a bunch for watching all the way through. If you liked it, feel free to subscribe to the channel. We've got a lot more exciting content coming your way. Thanks again for watching. Take care, and catch you next time.